My name is Ethier Harris, and I will be your webinar manager and host for this afternoon. So before I introduce Dr. Mason and Dr. Staley, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Can everyone see the slide? Okay, just making sure. So today's meeting will last approximately 1 hour. The recordings will be made available online after the meeting, and you'll receive an email showing you how you can access those. What else? Oh, we ask that when you're speaking, be sure to eliminate background noise as this is being recorded. And if you're not using a microphone, be sure to project and use your voice so the computer will actually pick it up. If you so choose and you did not call in today and you used your computer, if you are comfortable opening your camera, we would love to see your lovely face. If you're not comfortable because you just got in from a 10K run or you don't feel you look cute enough, then we're not gonna pressure you, but we would love to see you as this is a collaborative. Let's see. Oh, you can use the chat box, right? Is that the next slide? Yeah. You can use the chat box to ask any questions or answer any questions that you may have. The chat box is available. There is a polling question. You won't need to use the chat box to do that. When I launch the poll, it'll be a simple click to answer those questions. If you're having any technical issues, I would like to introduce Ingrid. She is co-hosting along with myself, and she'll be working to answer all your questions in the chat, any technical issues. Hey, I can't open my video. I'm trying to talk and I'm muted or whatever. There are a lot of you. There are 31 participants, 32, I think they keep coming. There are 32 of you now. So please use the raise your hand feature. So we know that you've gotten an opportunity to speak. So once again, we're excited to have you here, and I am going to turn it over to Dr. Staley.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Martha Staley. I'm on the faculty at the Yale Program for Recovery and Community Health, which is the academic institution lead for this project. And I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about this project and the larger project as we go along. But I just want to say how delighted I am to be with you all this afternoon. There's been a lot of work that has gone into creating this gathering this afternoon, and we're so grateful that all of you took the time to submit really thoughtful applications for this learning collaborative. We know that there is just a wealth of information and experience throughout this collaborative from across the entire Northeast, so we're very excited to hear more about you and get a chance to start working together. So we're going to start with some introductions first, and I'm going to ask you to please tell us your name and where you're from, and maybe what you are most hoping to get out of this learning collaborative. So Arinthia, do you want to, or actually I will call on people. Let's see. Oh, should I go over the agenda? I'm sorry, let me go over the agenda first, just to know what's happening, and then we will go through the welcome and introductions.
Okay.
So I think it's really important for us to get to know each other, and then we're going to talk a little bit briefly about the importance of trauma in school-based mental health, and an introduction to the C-TLC, the Childhood Trauma Learning Collaborative, a bit about our SCATE assessment tool, a little bit about our partners and staff in the larger project, and then next the role that you all will be playing as part of this learning collaborative as C-TLC fellows. And then we will wrap up with question and answer and next steps that we'll all take. So I will begin with some introduction. So again, if you could just tell us your name, where you're from, and what grade level you're involved in either teaching or working with, and then what you hope to get out of this learning collaborative. That would be great. So I'll start with A. Elliott.
Hi, my name's Andrea Elliott, and I am a high school principal in Concord, New Hampshire. I spent 19 years as a school guidance director before moving on to administration. So it's a huge area of interest of mine. My whole philosophy in working as a principal is based on the whole child and dealing with students, you know, backgrounds and family issues and what they bring to school.
Great, welcome. Let's see, next we have a phone number. It's 413-243.
I think that's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Kate Retzel. I'm an elementary school teacher, principal now, in Lee, Massachusetts. We have worked with CEI starting about 3 years ago to begin to create a trauma-sensitive / heart-centered environment at Lee Elementary School. So we're in our 3rd year of practice towards accommodations of all sorts of mental illness and trauma-based kiddos.
Fabulous, thank you. Let's see, Susie De Silva, please. Oh, you'll have to take yourself off of mute.
Sorry, I said hi there, Susie De Silva. I actually think there's 2 of me somehow here, but nonetheless, I am an assistant superintendent of schools in Darien, Connecticut. While I oversee all aspects of curriculum, one of the curriculum areas that we've been spending a lot of time on is health and wellness. And so that's social emotional learning, that's mental health, that's executive functioning, that's kids in crisis, that's health education and all that comes with that. And so while I don't need to tell any of you all, it's been pretty complex because it's like an umbrella with many different spokes, and the spokes somehow intertwine. And so I hope to be able to start clarifying some of these different pieces together with everyone here.
Thank you. Let's see, Rachel Santa, please.
Hello, I'm Dr. Rachel Santa. I'm the Director of Special Education Services for Cumberland School Department, which is in very northern Rhode Island. I'm interested in the project. I actually originally signed up for a school. We run multiple support programs for students with who have trauma-based histories, as well as provide district-wide mental health services in order to not trigger kids and to keep them very safe and hopefully accessing their education to the greatest extent possible. So I originally came in really with a school-based program and ended up applying to be a fellow, and I'm excited to see what this whole project looks like.
Great, nice to have you. Let's see, E. McLaughlin. There you go.
I'm Erica McLaughlin, and I am principal in Randolph Elementary in my 14th year. Prior to that, I was in Connecticut working in Bridgeport. So my career, I've worked in high poverty, high trauma environments. So I am immersing myself in trauma learning by taking courses. And then when I learned of this opportunity, I had to try to apply, and so happy to be a part of it. Next year, we're developing currently a support structure system to better increase resiliency in our high-risk students. So I'm in the process of hiring 2 master-level social workers to be on staff in the school next year to increase our capacity to support kiddos, because our local mental health agencies are underfunded, overworked, and often unavailable. So schools often feel like a silo. So I'm doing my best, and my staff is hungry for learning about the brain science and the negative impacts on trauma on their brain. And so just trying to increase our capacity to support kids for their wellness as well as for the staff's wellness.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's see, Jim O'Rourke.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Jim O'Rourke. I'm the principal at Hillsborough-Daring High School in New Hampshire. Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Hi.
This is my 8th year here at Hillsborough-Daring, and one of the things I hope to get from the collaborative is I keep having things pop up. I've assembled what's called a core team at our school, and that's our school counselors, our nurse, our homeless liaison, our psychologist, principal, assistant principal, special ed coordinator, and we meet on a weekly basis to talk about our kids' needs, any students suffering from any sort of trauma, mental illness, any of those things. And the hope is I can bring this back to our school. We have a pretty high population of mental health issues at our school. We're a small rural school, 350 kids, 50% pre-introduced. So hopefully we can do some stuff. I can bring some of this stuff back to my team and try to create some good plans.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's see, Ryan McKenna. Can you hear me?
All right, can you hear me now?
Sorry,
Right.
I couldn't see your entire name. I apologize.
So my name is Ryan McKinney. I'm a principal at Phillips Sugg Middle School, which is a small middle school in Lisbon Falls, Maine. This is my first year as principal here. And we're really looking to build up the resiliency of our students and help combat some of the negative effects that trauma and low SES has had on our community and our students. So that's why I'm looking forward to joining the group.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Pam Reid.
Hi, I'm Pam Reid. I'm from Rutland, Vermont. Hi, Erica. I'm associate principal at a 9 through 12 high school in one of the larger cities in Vermont. And I'm looking to help gain strategies for our teachers. As Erica said, our teachers are hungry for to broaden their toolbox. They're feeling like they don't have the resources or tools to meet the kids' needs. So I'm hoping to develop those. Ideally, in long term, I'd like to help our district, our pre-K to 12 district, develop a system of support for our youngest students all the way up through high school.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Mellow, is that?
Hi, my name, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Amy Messenger. I am
Sorry, I wasn't sure if your name was Messenger.
Oh, Amy Mellow Messenger. Amy, it's fine, no, either way. I'm a school social worker in Providence, Rhode Island. I've been a school social worker for 4 years. Before that, I worked for DCYF for 10, so adoption, a lot of adoption, foster care. I'm one of 2 social workers at the largest elementary school in Rhode Island. I'm excited to be part of this group and looking forward to learning some new things on what I can bring back to the school. So, thank you.
Kirsten H. or Kirsten, I'm not sure.
Yes, it's Kirsten. So Kirsten Hanrahan, I'm a school social worker in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. I'm currently placed at the high school. And really what I'm looking to get out of this is just collaboration with you all and any strategies that I can take back and integrate into my clinical practice at the school, or strategies to just kind of complete further professional development with the teachers, either at my school or in the district as a whole, to continue that trauma-sensitive care and treatment.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Bach Elders.
Hi, my name is Stacy Batchelder, and I am a principal in Nashua, New Hampshire, at a fairly small neighborhood school. And we have, one of the main reasons why I'm very interested in this. We have 4 district-wide programs housed in our building. A K-1 classroom, a 2-3 classroom, a 3-4 classroom, and a 4-5 classroom, self-contained for students with emotional and behavioral disabilities. So we have about 30 students out of our about 300 students in our school are coming from a lot of trauma background, mental illness, and while we're called a therapeutic program, I'm not sure that we're doing enough, and so I'm really looking forward to collaborating and learning how we can support those students, develop a better system of care for them, and just build capacity, because a lot of these students are mainstreamed throughout the typical classrooms, and how we can help all teachers be able to help them.
Great, thank you. Welcome. See, Joan.
I'm Joan Cavallo. I'm from St. Albans, Vermont. We're up in the northwest corner of the state. I'm in a large school for Vermont. We're a pre-K to 8th grade school with 800 students. In our school, we have 5 alternative programs that run within our building. Because our needs are so high that we could no longer outsource students, we had to figure out how to solve it. And at the same point in time, one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be part of this group is I've spent the last 6 years working with a resiliency coach and learning everything we can around how we support these children. And if there's more out there to learn, I want to be able to bring that back to my school and my district.
Terrific, thank you. Jay Scarpati? Oh, we can't hear you. There you go. You know what, maybe we will come back to you. Eric?
Hi everyone, hope you can hear me. So I'm Eric Dye, and I'm a teacher, 8th grade middle school in Westport, Connecticut. And so here I'm just looking to get tools to help students who have experienced trauma and helping them be able to help themselves, bringing some of these resources back. Our district has had a focus on school climate, mindfulness, and the growth mindset. So I'm really looking forward to working with everyone and bringing some of these tools back to my district. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we are working on the mic issue for Jay Scarpati, so we will keep doing that. And in the meantime, we'll hear from Benjamin. I'm sorry, your full name isn't coming up on my screen, but Benjamin?
Hi.
Brigham. Benjamin Brigham.
Yes. Hi, I'm Benjamin Brigham. I am a technology integration coach in Westbrook, Maine. We're just outside of Portland, Maine. I work in the Westbrook School Department secondary schools, and I'm really here just to learn anything that I can to support our teachers, to help them support our students. I have a long history in education working with disadvantaged youth, and I'm just looking to see what I can learn to share.
Great, thank you. A. Sumsky.
Hi, that's me. My name is Allie Ski. I am the Bridge Program clinical leader support person at the Methuen High School in Methuen, Massachusetts. So Bridge is a part of the Bright Network you might have heard of out of the Brookline Center for Community Mental Health. So we're a transition program for students returning to school after extended absence, primarily due to psychiatric hospitalization. So as you can imagine, I have a pretty serious caseload in terms of trauma history and anxiety, depression, everything kind of under the sun. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to learn more about how to serve those students with trauma history, and also how to expand our services at the high school and beyond, just to be serving more students, whether or not they're in my program or not. So yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Let's see, Heather Pock. Is it Pock or Patch?
It's actually Pa. The CH is silent. So I'm Heather Pa, and I actually have the privilege of working in a district-wide specialized therapeutic program for grades 1 through 6 in Cheshire, Connecticut. I work with students who have emotional needs and experience trauma, have diagnoses of anxiety or depression, and have difficulty maintaining their behavior in the regular education classroom. All of our students are mainstreamed, so I want to continue to learn about trauma, how this impacts them, and help to bring that knowledge both to our teachers within our program, but also our regular education teachers within the district.
Great, thank you. You're close to me, I'm in Hamden, so.
Oh, great.
Let's see, Lisa Parker. Are you there? Okay, let's see, Jamie? Ella?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Jamie Ela. I work in RSU4 in Maine, which is Sabattis and Litchfield are the two towns that I'm in. I work with pre-K 2 students in 2 schools. They're about 12 minutes apart, about 400 students total. Just looking for a ton of resources. The staff are looking for help. I don't feel like this is my area of expertise yet, although I have learned some over the last couple of years while in administration, but I need a lot of support. So this looks like an amazing opportunity. The resources will be very welcomed. So I look forward to learning more and working alongside all of you.
Great, thank you. Pam.
I think, this is Pam Reid. I think I'm signed in under twice.
Oh, you are. Oh, I apologize. Is there anybody that I didn't call on of our fellows? I know our staff, our C-TLC staff haven't introduced themselves. I don't know if we want to do that now or wait until a little bit later.
I haven't been introduced. I'm sorry. I'm calling from my phone. I just don't have good internet access where I am.
Of course.
I'm Kristin Lobato. I'm a middle school principal at Maree Community Middle School in Reedfield, Maine. In our school district, for the past couple of years, have been learning a lot about adverse childhood effects and trying to figure out what we can do to help support our kids best. We have, in the middle and high school, we have a wellness center, which has a physician's assistant come in so kids can go in that direction. We have clinical counselors that come in, but we still just have a lot of need. And we have recently at the middle school established restorative practices back into the school system, which has, or in what I've read, has helped with trauma with students and just helping them to understand the harm that's been done and ways to make it right. And I'm really excited to learn more about this program and what we can do to help our kids even more. I don't think trauma's ever going to go away. So the more we can support them, the better.
Yeah, unfortunately. Thank you, Kristin. Let's see. I know that we have 2 participants who are having a hard time with their mics. So I apologize about that. Know that you can call in on your phone while you're looking at the Zoom webinar, or you can try logging out and logging back in, and that might help fix the issue. But we're all getting, getting used to the Zoom technology, and I think that as we go along, it'll be smoother and smoother.
Yeah, some of the computers don't actually have mics, so that's just something to keep in mind. If you're on a desktop, even though they're newer, they don't always have mics.
Does mine work now? Can you hear me now?
Working. Good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why that was being funky there. Sorry. I'm Jen Scarpa. I'm a principal of an elementary school in Nashua, New Hampshire. And we have been working over the past few years to build a solid kind of tier 1, 2, and 3 system around social, emotional, and behavioral supports for students to help all kiddos, including those that have experienced trauma. So I'm just excited to learn more from all of you and from the current research out there.
Great, thank you very much. We're glad that we got a chance to hear from you. I think I will save the introductions for our team for a little bit longer, a little bit later when we get a chance to tell you more about the Learning Collaborative and the work that we're doing. But I just, I know it takes a while for all of us to introduce ourselves because we're a large group. I apologize for getting your names wrong if I did. I myself obviously have a difficult name to spell, so I know what that's like. Just know that on this Zoom platform, you can rename yourself if you go up to the view options, and I believe it's under settings. You can change your name on the screen. And I just want to say how delighted I am and impressed by the variety of experiences that you all are bringing to this collaborative. We worked really hard to try to get some diversity in terms of experience and, people working in urban schools or districts and rural schools and districts. But not only do you all sound like you have a real interest in trauma and school-based mental health, but you certainly are bringing quite a lot of knowledge and experience already. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Learning Collaborative in a bit, but right now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and partner in this project, Dr. Christine Mason. Are you there, Chris?
There. Okay, we'll try again. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry you can't see me. I have a new computer. I've been on these Zoom meetings for several weeks and just thought it was going to be a piece of cake. There's some setting that I need to go to, which by the time we have our next meeting, you will be able to see me. But I really enjoyed your introductions, and I want to thank you again for being with us, and I look forward to working together. So if we can just go through the slides quickly now, I know we have quite a bit to cover, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be with you. So Martha, do you want to go back and take this, or do you want me to? Okay, I will do it. Okay. So what do we know about trauma? We know that right now it is one of the buzzwords in the field. More and more people, more and more schools are saying, what can we do to become trauma informed? What can we do to have child-centered interventions that will improve resiliency, learning, and achievement? And we know that schools are ideal settings. And so we applaud your work. We're glad you're here. We're glad that we have an opportunity to help you work on being more nurturing and helping to increase the productive factors in your schools. Next. We also know that, in fact, early psychosis and teen suicide are two huge problems. And these are areas that, in fact, the New England Mental Health Technology Transfer Centers, which we are part of, are focusing on this year. And you will find that we will have additional resources for you in these areas. Martha, do you want to add anything about that?
Not for now. I will when we talk more about the MHTTC.
Okay. Next. Okay, so we have some polls for you now. And Orinthia, is this your place to help us understand what to do?
Polling should have just popped up on your screen. So I'm going to launch this poll, and you can go ahead and answer the questions. And I will read them for those of you that are on the phone. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get your polling because you're not online, but I do want you to hear the questions. And if you notice, the poll is timed. So if you can answer, wow, you all are quick. You all are quick. The first question is, are you, your school, district, or agency particularly concerned about A is early psychosis, B is teen suicide, C is neither. Question 2, does your program offer any prevention or treatment programs for either of these? A, early psychosis, B, teen suicide, C is neither. And the third question, if you are at a school or district, is it trauma informed? A is yes, B is no, and C is in the process. Does anyone need more time to answer these? If so, raise your hand. I don't want to end the poll before I've given everybody that is online a chance. If you need more time, just raise your hand and I'll know not to close the poll.
So Arinthia, as I'm looking at it for number 3 on my screen, the answers don't show up. I don't know if that's the case for other people or not.
Shows up on mine.
Okay, good. Good.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll and we'll look at, I can see the results, but you can't. So I'm going to end the poll so you can see the results. Okay, I'm going to share them with you all. Can you see the polling results, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Mason, can you see the results? And
oh, I can scroll down. Yes, thank you.
So if you scroll down, you can use these results as your talking points.
Great, so it looks that like there are quite a few of you who are concerned about early psychosis and teen suicides. And while we know that the teen suicide programs for prevention are, I wouldn't say common, are more widespread, I'm heartened to see that there's also some of you who are working in places where there are programs about early psychosis, since it's a lesser known behavioral health condition that kids face. And it looks like a couple of you are in trauma-informed districts with about almost 40% in districts that are working on becoming trauma-informed, and about half of you are not in trauma-informed districts. So thank you so much for answering that poll. I'm going to tell you a little bit more, if you want to go to the next slide, about the larger project that we are part of and why we are focusing on the questions of trauma, suicide, and early psychosis. The Childhood Trauma Learning Collaborative is actually part of a larger project called the Northeast MHTTC, which stands for the Northeast Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, which is a project that is funded by the Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level in the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. And we are one of 10 regional centers across the country that is dedicated to using evidence-based means to disseminate mental health practices for the New England region, which is guided by a network of stakeholders from people with lived experience of mental health conditions to people at the governor's level and policymakers and departments of education. So obviously our Northeast region is Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So you could go ahead to the next. So the Childhood Trauma Learning Collaborative is actually a part of the Northeast MHTTC that was added by SAMHSA to expand the work of the MHTTC to disseminate evidence-based practices in school-based mental health and to reach out to, within our region, to develop collaboratives, to develop resources and tools for people who are doing work in schools to promote school-based mental health. We have chosen to focus on trauma and childhood trauma, given the large number of students, and you all articulated that beautifully, who have been traumatized. It's about 60% of kids by the time they're 18 have experienced a significant trauma. and some of the things that happen as a result of trauma, which can obviously range from issues with behavior to issues like suicide and early psychosis. Even though early psychosis is obviously not caused by trauma, trauma is certainly a risk factor for early psychosis and other types of serious mental illness. So the larger MHTTC within the Northeast region is focusing on suicide and early psychosis, and we are working with Yale is working with Harvard and the Center for Social Innovation in that work to develop resources about suicide prevention and early psychosis. So I am going to turn it back over to Chris. I know that we are covering a lot in a short amount of time. So Chris, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the assessment tool that we will be working with as part of the Learning Collaborative.
Sure. I want to start though by saying when it comes to teen suicide, all of you will be getting the Center for Educational Improvement's monthly e-newsletter. The one that's coming out next week focuses on teen suicide. We're going to try to have a focus on mental health issues and concerns. So just kind of watch your inbox, and if you can make sure it doesn't end up in spam, that might be useful for everyone. However, with SCATE, this is an instrument that we've developed over the past probably 6 years. We worked with teams of principals and school leaders. We started, at some point, we had like 180 pages of rubrics, would you believe, looking at everything we could from policies and observations and student behaviors and teacher engagement with students, etc. And we've narrowed it down to 40 questions, if you'd believe. We also have a companion instrument called the SCATE Supplement that will be available in a few months that has 49 questions. Both of these instruments have been validated with a national survey. SCATE had over 800 respondents and has a very high validity score at 0.95, a Cronbach alpha, if any of you know what that means. It essentially means that it is highly rated and should be very valid and reliable for our use. So this instrument is a simple online tool. We will have it available next week. We are sending out a link shortly. And you saw in the information that you filled out for us that in fact we would expect you to fill this out. We will start with that. And then we will expect you to bring some schools on board. And I'll talk more about this later, but essentially we are hoping that everyone can try to get one school on board sometime within the next 5 to 10 days. We said March 15th, but we realize we're pushing it, right? So if we can get that within 10 days, we'll feel really like we're on our way to understanding more about what's going on in New England. So some of the sample questions, just to let you know, one of them, and these are rated on a scale of 1 to 4, a Likert scale, from everything from needs improvement to exemplary. So students show empathy for others. Some of the questions relate to teachers' perceptions of students, and some relate to teachers' perception of self and administration in the school community. So the second example, teachers and administrators' further participation and a sense of belonging. And of course, you probably know, I mean, you've got really exemplary backgrounds, so you probably already know that that sense of connectedness and belonging is really one of those critical factors for feeling better about oneself and reducing the impact of trauma. Next. So Martha, do you want to go?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Even those of us with lots of experience with Zoom have a hard time finding that unmute button. But as I said, I am faculty member of the Yale program for recovery and community health, which is the lead group for this MHTTC work in the Northeast and the Childhood Trauma Learning Collaborative. So I just want to tell you a little bit about who we are and how we come to this work. We are located in the Yale School of Medicine, Department of Psychiatry, and our goal is to transform behavioral health programs, agencies, and systems to be culturally responsive and reoriented to social inclusion, recovery, the lived experiences of people with mental illness, and their families and the communities. So our mission is really a social justice mission around behavioral health conditions and the people who live with them. And so that's how we come to be the lead for the MHTTC. Next one. So that includes, and you may see these names in some of the activities that you participate in, because this larger MHTTC does have a lot of resources that we'll be using. But our director of the Program for Recovery and Community Health and the director of this program is the MHTTC is Dr. Larry Davidson, who is a professor in the Department of Psychiatry. And our project director is Maria Restrepo-Toro. And our lead evaluator is Dr. Maria O'Connell, who is also a faculty member in the Department of Psychiatry. I've introduced myself to you. I'm Dr. Martha Staley. I am the project manager for the school portion of the MHTTC. I actually began my career as a high school teacher in Oakland, California, and then later in New Haven, Connecticut. So my background is in urban education and culturally and linguistically diverse populations. My PhD is in public health, and I have an interest in school-based mental health initiatives and the evaluation of community-based organizations. So Chris?
Okay, so I'm Christine Mason. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Educational Improvement, and for this project, I'm the Project Director for the C-TLC. I have a background in special education at first, and then in doing research related to inclusion, working with elementary school principals in particular, and the last probably 7 or 8 years focusing on what we call heart-centered learning, social emotional learning, and helping to develop not only ESCAPE, but also looking at ways to engage students, such as looking at STEM and STEAM initiatives. Next. So I'm just going to briefly introduce my team. These people work with CEI, and there we go. Dr. Michelle Rivers Murphy and Sue Mullane are both with us today, so I will introduce them in a minute as they present. They each have a 4 or 5 minute presentation. Jill Flanders is a principal or retired principal out of South Hadley, Massachusetts. And Hillary Hodgson is working with me. She's with the Trauma Center out of the Boston area. And she and I have been trying to do research together for a number of years. I'm just really excited to say we're in the middle of writing another research proposal to deal with everything that we're dealing with here. Okay. So next. So for Michelle, let me just say briefly that Michelle's my co-author. We have this book that's out on mindfulness, and it's one of the resources we will present for the project. Michelle and I have been working together for, I bet it's 5 or 6 years now. And Michelle, why don't you just take it from here?
Michelle, you have to unmute.
There goes half of my introduction, so I'll speed it up. Hi, everyone. Thank you for all the introductions. So yes, Chris and I have been working for about 5 or 6 years. We've been doing really cutting edge, exciting work. Our book specifically speaks to the epidemic, is what I call it, of trauma. And I have worked at every single level as an administrator and as a teacher. And I too have a SPED background, as Chris does. I have worked with trauma in developing crisis management, school management plans, and creating positive school climate for a long time, from working with juvenile delinquents and inner city, cultural diverse areas, to working at the high school level for re-entry from residential and day treatment, back into mainstreaming, and having a connection with a school social worker liaison, working with the families and co-treatments. And we've dealt with a variety of mental health issues, from teen suicide to psychosis to multiple diagnoses. And really, we're in a state right now where there is no one that is void of dealing with trauma in their school, no matter their zip code. So we are working, and I've had the pleasure of working in Lee with Kate Retzel, which is one of our new fellows. We are working diligently in the behalf of kids' health and well-being, as well as staff and whole community. So thank you, I'm thrilled to be here.
So Michelle, do you want to go through your slides very briefly?
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so one of the things that our book talks about, but is so important anytime you talk with trauma, and Kate will tell you as well as you interact with her through this process, the principal at Lee, is that the neuroscience piece behind understanding trauma and the interconnectivity between brains, between our brains and emotions and stress and trauma is particularly important. So what we do is we start off by teaching about the brain, so that if teachers understand the way their brain works, in turn they can teach students how their brain works. And the three areas that we really work on are the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and the amygdala. And thank you for going back just for a moment. When a person experiences stress, certain parts of the brain trigger the stress hormone, the cortisol. And this can really compromise a variety of things, and that is the functioning at school, from student performance to the expense of conferences, for example. Let's go on to the next one, just because of time, please. So trauma, stress, and emotion leads to compromised brain function, and this is why it's important to teach about the neuroscience behind emotion, stress, and trauma, because 1/4 of our students suffer from mental disorder long term. And chronic stress can also shrink the brain's growth as well as kill brain cells. And this compromises both function, like I said, and structure, which impacts learning, living, and overall mental health and well-being. Next, please. All right, so here's really what we did at Lee for the year-long pilot. Was we really combined mindfulness, compassion, and heart-centered learning, which is CEI's trigger social emotional learning approach. And it is to specifically combat trauma and stress. And we all know what ACEs are, and we know that what is happening right now is that the climates in which we work in are becoming most challenging, not only for the kids, but the teachers and the staff that work with them, because both staff and students are suffering from some type of stress and trauma. So our approach is that all for one, one for all. And the work that we hope to describe in more detail that Kate and I did in Lee was simply magical in the sense that they are really building a compassionate, cool environment, second to none, which really builds on the importance of having a supportive, nurturing learning environment. Next. Okay, so here's the scenario of what really happened down in Lee. Kate Retzel, again, I'd like to give her a lot of shout outs because she really did lead the way in this regards. Kate noticed an increase in red flags from the school in previous years, just not students and students' behavior, more frequent and longer outbursts, but also what was happening with her staff. And she had the courage at the time to go in front of the school board as well as speak and get the superintendent at the time on board to say, look, we have to do more for our students, but we also have to do more for our staff. And so the journey began. They were already a trauma-informed school, and the marriage of Kate and I came along, and our heart-centered work and compassionate school work to combat trauma and stress turned really into a incredible journey, which they just continue to build on every year, as she had previously said. So that's from my end right now, just understanding that through cultivating a compassionate school culture and weaving mindfulness and heart-centeredness so that it permeates not only in the classroom, but throughout the whole school building and beyond, and really make a more healthier setting where both students, staff, and the entire school community is healthier and functions at a much higher level. So thank you so much to Kate for the work we've done and the continued work that we do throughout schools.
Okay, so I am looking at the time, and Sue, we're going to have to ask you to maybe wrap things up in about 2 or 3 minutes so that I can
I can do that.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So let me just say, Sue Mullane has done a lot of work in West Virginia. And Sue, why don't you go ahead? Thank you.
I've been in West Virginia for 5 years as both an academic improvement specialist and as a trauma consultant, and 28 years serving all grade levels K through 12, both special ed, regular ed, and gifted. I feel that anxiety and hypervigilance is the #1 issue we're dealing with in West Virginia, due in part because of the opiate crisis. West Virginia has the highest death rate for overdoses for heroin and methamphetamine. And with that comes the collateral damage of neonatal abstinence syndrome and trauma in children, particularly at the pre-K level where they're not regulated. And I know that you principals in that area can speak to those issues. Building social emotional competencies and grit takes everyone. And that's been our clarion call in Huntington, West Virginia, Cabell County, where they had the pill mills dumping all these heroin, Oxycontin drugs at astronomical levels and perpetuated in motion the heroin epidemic that has left so many families fragmented. We're trying to build on emotional resilience, as all are you, and what that looks like. And part of what I'm doing is trying to weave it into the curriculum. Trauma-based instruction woven into formally the Common Core. So I write lessons. Good news, the Handle with Care program is currently in 6 states. And essentially what it is when a first responder travels to an overdose or a suicide or a domestic violence situation, he looks around, sees what kids are looking or in the family, writes their names down, and reports it to a principal. How many times have we asked ourselves, if I only knew or had known, I would have handled that situation differently? Handle with Care is now sitting in committee in Congress, a $10 million grant for other states to incorporate it, potentially if funding is available. It's been endorsed by NAESP, the National Association for Secondary School Principals, Association for Superintendents, and National Association of Counselors. I think it's prudent that if this money should become available, that this is a wonderful opportunity to get the community on board for trauma-sensitive care. Restorative justice. In one elementary school, we reduced the suspension rate by 60% by embracing Hattie's research, of course, which is the emphasis on relationship. But neurodiversity is a major issue. Children of color, for instance, are disproportionately suspended more than others, non-children of color. Restorative justice is a national movement for incarcerated adults, But we're also looking at it for children and youth. For instance, in the state of California, they have a Bill of Rights for children of incarcerated parents. And one of the first items on that list is we have the right to hug our parents who are in jail. And when you think about the ACEs research, criminality and incarceration is one of those 10 questions. And I think that more funding for youth schools is going to be available under the auspices of restorative justice. The passive resistance students, for those children that are dysregulated who suffer from hyperarousal, often sleep in class or they are disengaged. And part of that problem, obviously, is cell phone interruption. Kids are getting as much as 500 to 4,000 hits of dopamine a day with every text or with every like on Facebook. And we're in a competition game. One of the things that I've tried to promote in West Virginia is how to wire the human adolescent brain as well as preschool brain to STEAM. And in West Virginia, there's a collaborative movement to get kids ready for 21st century jobs because of the coal mines closing. So we have to do this dance under one umbrella. How do we teach what we need to teach and at the same time teach emotional regulation and student engagement? And so that's it.
So thank you, everyone. So I'm looking at the time. We are going to speed through these next few slides. However, I want to give you a couple minutes for questions, and we want to also make sure that that you know you can follow up with either Martha or me, sending emails if you have further questions. So if you can just go to the next slide. Some of this is going to look really familiar to you. You know, I want to just say that we want your help in trying to figure out the best things to happen over the next few years, what you'd like to see happening in your schools, in your districts, how to help be a conduit so that we can spread information on these best practices. Next. So you know this is the commitment of 5 to 6 hours a month. We'll have many activities coming up, webinars, and then we actually have 4 fellows per state now since we added the high school as well as the elementary. Next. The stipend, I just want to point out, we talk about quarterly. There's really 3 quarters left in this year. So between now and December, you'll have an opportunity to get 3 payments. And the first one will come shortly as you bring in your first schools. And there's also CEUs. We will have information on that coming out shortly. The first round of applications for schools is due on March 15th. However, like I said, we're going to expand and extend that. We are looking now at the second round, which will come in by April 15th. We have information on that that's already going out. And if you have schools that you want to bring in and you have questions about how to do that, you can contact Martha or me, and we'll be right back with a response. So some of the next things that are coming up, in order to help promote the sense of a community, we're asking for brief bios and photos. And Ingrid, have we sent an announcement out? If we haven't, it'll be going out very shortly. There's a kickoff meeting in Boston on April 29th. We will have details coming out. And we're sorry if, in fact, that date won't work for everyone. We tried our best, and it's just impossible to get a date that works for everyone. But we will do our best to make sure that everyone feels included and informed. The SCADE assessment, as I said, there will be a link coming out within the next week. We'd like you to turn that around quickly. We will use the results to show you how this works and to inform us about the sequence of activities. Next. So if you have questions, here are all our emails. And now we can open it up. We will just spend like 2 or 3 minutes if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will thank you again for your participation.